So the trick in making a good fire, rule number one is to have patience. Especially when you arrive here in the winter, the first 1 or 2 hours it can simply be cold. So it's good to keep the cabin in the closed position, the wood and the glass shell closed. And maybe in the first 2 hours you'll always be wearing a sweater or even a jacket. Sometimes in winter the cabin is so cold that actually it is the cold that is pressing down the smoke back into the cabin. The trick is to start with a handful of these little fire blocks. They have the role, first and foremost, to actually heat up the chamber and the chimney, and that will make it much easier for the smoke to leave through the right exit where it's supposed to be. Once they're burning, you literally can close the door for, let's say, 5 to 10 minutes, keep an eye on it, for them to fully burn. And don't close the door completely because it still needs a little bit of extra air. The moment they're fully burning, the chamber is heating up, and then you can go to the next phase. So after a minute or let's say 5, once it's burning really well, you can take some of the smallest pieces of wood and you can basically scatter them around the burning little blocks, and maybe take a few more. Make sure that there's a lot of air in between them. So if you keep them too tight on the fire, it's actually going to suffocate the fire. Again, now you can wait 10, maybe even 15 minutes. But also make sure you don't wait too long. You have to keep an eye on the fire because at some point it might actually be over its peak and then it starts to die again. So you want it to be the right moment. It's burning in full force, and then you can move on to the next step, putting the bigger blocks. So in these first steps, it's always important that the fire gets enough air, and that happens by making sure this is always in the most open position, so fully to the right, and the door is never fully closed. So I always leave it, let's say, 1 centimeter open. So once these small little wood pieces are burning to their maximum extent, so keep an eye on it and make the judgment for yourself. Then you can start putting a little bit bigger blocks. Always obviously be careful because it's hot. Again, scatter them around the fire. There's enough air in between them. You can start with 3 or 4 and you close the door again, but not fully. Leave 1 centimeter open. So if you feel like there's a little bit of smoke development coming into the room, don't worry. If it's a lot, then maybe it's not good, but if there's a little bit of smoke, that's fine, because at some point the smoke will find its way through the chimney. And you can actually help the fire a little bit by blowing into the fire. You have to be careful, obviously, because the heat can also affect your face. But you see, if you blow basically quite gently into the fire, that immediately the fire starts to gain force. But once I do that, I also feel the heat in my face. So don't get too close and always be careful. And more you will also hear the fire. The fire is actually going to heat up the space once it's starting to radiate. And the radiation will actually start maybe after 30 minutes to an hour. So, and then you can just keep filling up the chamber with enough wood, and it will start generating more and more heat. Again, leave open about 1 centimeter here. Once these blocks are fully on, then you actually slowly start to have a proper fire, and the heat is starting to radiate into the room. So there's two things that are happening now. This space is being warmed up. Obviously, when the shells are closed, they're open now, but in wintertime you'll have them closed. The other thing is that the chamber has a water reservoir that's being heated up at the moment, that's connected to your boiler. It usually takes about a good 5 hours before the water in the boiler, 150 liters, is warm. So that means after 4 or 5 hours you can have a bath or you can take a shower. So now you can actually see that the fire is at its full power. You can just keep adding blocks now as you wish. If you feel the space still needs a lot of heating up, then you just keep filling the chamber. So if it's still really cold in this space, especially in winter, and you want extra heat to be radiated into the room, you can do, first of all, this. You open the lid, and now there's actually more heat coming in instead of exiting through your chimney. Then you can put this little Stirling motor mill on top, and this fan is gonna blow the heat actually into the space. If you still feel like you need more, you can open the oven, which will generate more heat. And then as a last step, but you should only do that when you're around, you can open this door. It's completely safe as long as you keep an eye on it. Should you leave the cabin or not pay attention, then always keep it closed and locked. So the moment you arrive, especially in winter, you start making the fire. The room and the water is being heated up. If you then keep the fire going during your stay, 2 or 3 days, you will actually always have hot water, except for the first 5 hours, let's say. So even in the night, the fire will slowly die, but once it's morning and you start putting blocks in again, and maybe you need to help the fire or even completely restart the fire, this chamber is still more or less hot, and the water in the boiler will also be more or less hot, so you can just continue the process. I think that's it. So I wish you a very nice stay.